This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 176, recorded on July 24th, 2014. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite gadgets that find their way into your home and sometimes on vacation. We cover news, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we post the show each week with world-class show notes out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show. Send me an email, Jim at the AverageGuy.tv. You can find me on Twitter at jcollison, or now you can call in those questions. Crank call us if you'd like. Mike, I've said that, and nobody's taken me up on my crank call offers.
So nobody's called you a crank call?
Nobody's crank called me, like, is your refrigerator running, or, any of those kinds of things.
I need to set you up with something.
There you go. Well, if you're going to crank call me, call 402-478-8450, and we'll play your questions or your crank calls. If they're good, actually really good crank calls would make it on the show. So let me encourage. They got to be good, though. They can't be cheesy. I mean, they got to be really, really good. So 402-478-8450. And now Home Gadget Geeks is a part of the Geeks Network. Find this link to this show. Well, not yet, and many other podcasts out at thegeeksnetwork.com. Join us in chat. Watch us live on YouTube. Listen to us on Spreaker or Mixler, and find all the navigation out at theaverageguy.tv. All right, well, we've got a vacation tech show kind of lined up for you. I seem to want to talk about these every time I come back from a vacation. In March of 2013, I went to Europe, and when we came back, Mike Howard has joined me. He was on, and we talked about all tech that you go on vacation. Mike, how you doing?
Doing great. And if you want to call me, it's 555-867-5309.
Okay. Very nice. You might get Jenny on the other side of that call. We, like I alluded to earlier, when I get back from vacation, I spent a week in Colorado, and if you follow me on Facebook, I even posted some of our pictures on Twitter. Not a lot, but I put a few out there on Twitter for you to consume. If you're a Twitter follower, you can go back. One of the things we'll talk about it, I mapped some of the trails that we hiked, and so I put those on Twitter as well, some pictures. So it was a great week, but I love to come back and talk about vacation tech. So we're going to do that here in a second. Let me cover a little bit of housekeeping. We got some events coming up, and this is a perfect opportunity to do this up front. Since the topic lends itself to a long conversation, we'll save that towards the backside. But real quick, want to say thanks. At the end of the month, we get our payout for the Tech Scholarship Fund, and Amazon kicked in some dollars again this month. And so when you head out to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, you support the Tech Scholarship Fund. If you're new to the show, maybe you just picked us up and are listening to us for the first time. If that's the case, great. Thanks. Stay around for a few minutes, and we'd love to have you become a part of the community. But the Tech Scholarship Fund is, you're looking for something to, a tech gadget. Maybe the budget can't afford it, or the finance department won't release the funds for you to be able to do that. That's maybe the wife. Or the husband. I don't know. Maybe we have a few gals that listen to us. I doubt it, but if
I'm sure you got a few.
I've never hear from them.
Jackie comes out here every once in a while.
Once a year now. We never see Jackie. But if you can't get the funds, send me a note. We'll buy it for you, ship it out to you. We've got one of those out right now, a Wi-Fi extender device that we sent out. And John is working on that right now. He's going to have a great write-up ready for it. We'll send it out to you. You test it, maybe a little write-up, maybe come on the show, whatever you want to do with it, and then you get to keep it. Not a bad deal. And we want to say thanks for those of you who are using the Tech Scholarship Fund, the AverageGuy.tv/Amazon. Mike, I think you bookmarked that, right, on your browser, so you can go right to it?
Yeah, I have your website bookmarked on my browser, so yes. Really easy.
It's hard. I do the same thing. We shop it around a little bit, do some home server show, do some JPEG to RAW. But it's a great way. Just bookmark it and have it ready. And I've had some guys that kind of secretly, not secretly, but they'll bookmark their wife's computer so that when they go down, just go to this, and all those things help, and they're for a great cause. And so we want to say thanks for shopping at Amazon and for using that. It's really the only affiliate link that I even make any money on. So we
you also have it right there, easy to find in your Facebook group. If you're in your Facebook group, it's right there in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah, and we'd love to have you join the Facebook group. Just about 200 of us out there, and I know I've got more listeners than that. If you want to come over to the Facebook group and join us, that's great. Facebook.com/group/theaverageguy. Great way. All those links are out at theaverageguy.tv as well. We have a home service show meetup coming in Indianapolis. It's a great time. We've already sold about 26 spots. No, there's 26 left at this point. So more than half of them are gone. And you'll want to head out and secure that. If you don't know how to do that or you're wondering what that is, I'll have a link in the show notes to it. We call it the Home Service Show Meetup. It's just basically a general tech show in Indianapolis. We'd love to have you come out on September 20th. The link will be in the show notes to it as well. And then, Mike, I hit a milestone this week.
I'm seeing it in the show notes.
Yeah, and it's one of those kinds of things that kind of snuck up on me, but we've done 100,000 downloads.
That is crazy.
The Average Guy podcast. So both between this one and Financial Tech and all the other ones that I've done, Cyber Frontiers, we've got 100,000. Now we've actually done a little bit more when you think about all the YouTube stuff we've done.
Sure.
Plus, this doesn't go back to the beginning of time. I use the Blueberry plugin, and I know you use that as well on your site. But
is that where you're gauging it from, Blueberry?
Yeah, they've kind of become the point of record. We did some Podomatic when we first got started, and we did that for about a year, and so there's probably more.
Oh, sure.
But I'm just calling that point of record on since we've been keeping stats, and we only get that because you download the podcast every single week and listen to it. So we want to say thanks for doing that as well. And 100,000 downloads is nothing to shake a stick at. And so
bigger than a college football stadium.
Yeah, well, not bigger than Stanford, anyways. It is, yes, it is bigger than, and it's a great number to get to. And so we appreciate that you spend time downloading our stuff. We'll finish some announcements at the end, but I want to kind of dig in a little bit as we talk about vacation tech. It is July as we do this podcast. It's the end of July, kind of the end of the traditional vacation season, at least here in the United States. A lot of us are starting to wrap things up. Mike, school starts for us here in Nebraska like mid-April. So the kids are all mid-August. Yeah, mid-April.
Yeah, we start about the second week in August.
Yeah, I think we're on a very similar schedule.
Yeah.
Some schools out in the West Coast don't start until after Labor Day, but depending on where you're at. But most people are taking vacations around the summer, and I took mine early last year. We were in Germany for 9 days and got a chance to take a bunch of tech. One of the things I noticed this year about that I didn't do last year when I was in Germany is I took a lot of tech with me last year. This year I didn't take as much. I didn't think about it as much. Maybe the tech that I owned is better than it has been in the past. You don't have to take as many things. So I took a camera. Now I took my phone, Android Galaxy S4. I took a Windows phone because I have a Lumia 520. But I DJ'd a wedding, and I DJ'd the whole wedding from the Lumia 520. This is crazy to me, right? Sprint offered me a Spotify account for free for the next 3 months, and I'm like, why not? So I took them up on it, synced all that music, about 3 or 4 hours worth of music for the wedding, put it on the Lumia 520, played the whole thing in playlists. I created these little playlists.
The speakers are that good on that thing?
Well, no. So I plug that into, I have a PA system. So I plug that into a 300-watt amp and some big Yamaha speakers. We actually hauled from Nebraska to Colorado for this wedding.
Isn't that something that, because it's digital, it doesn't matter that it's a phone like that. As long as it has something to feed the speakers and those things that you're talking about, that little phone was able to do that, and I'm sure the quality of the sound was just fine.
Good enough MP3 quality, right? I mean, not hi-fi, but certainly just a jack, and then jack goes into an RCA port, and then that becomes a channel. And actually, I have some adapters that send it to that make it mono into a quarter-inch jack, and then it goes into a regular line in. And that if you're a geek, if you're a sound geek, and I'm kind of I do outdoor sound stuff. I DJ weddings and have done some of those things. In fact, the PA equipment will come with me this year. I can't believe I didn't bring it last year or the last couple of years, but for the Home Service Show meetup, I will bring my own equipment this year. Dave won't have to worry about that. Last year we had Microsoft bring it, but we'll be doing our own. So anyways, that was pretty cool. Lumia 520. So I had my Android phone. I had my Lumia, which doesn't have any service. I knew that, like with Spotify, this is what was so great about Spotify, is that you can download that music and play it. And not necessarily have to be connected, right? You can sync it up, play it on your phone, even if without a connection. The church we were at did not have a Wi-Fi connection, so I had to have something that would work. I did have a backup. I had Spotify and all the music downloaded on my Galaxy S4, so I could have backed that up as well if I needed to. And I brought my laptop with me, which had another copy of it on there just in case, right? I had 3 copies of it. I wasn't about to ruin a wedding reception by not having enough music available. So, I brought a battery for my stuff. So work laptop, which I didn't really even check my email was gone. Lumia 520, Android phone. A battery, right? Let's talk a little bit about the stuff that powers you. I ended up never needing it the whole time I was up there, right? I have that little Power Rocks battery. Yeah, no, not didn't pull. I did pull out my trusty.
Doing it?
Well, I just based on the usage and where we're at, we stayed at the hotel a lot, and so I could charge things up if I need it. But we would go out in the morning. We did a bunch of rock climbing. Go out in the morning, shoot pictures, come back, swim. Plug the phones in, so it wasn't too bad to be able to do. But those batteries, we've talked about this before. You can go back to it. There's a Power Rocks. I have a 900 milliamp or whatever that stands for. 9,000 milliamp, I think, is what it is. And so I took it, but it sat in my backpack the whole time. The thing I use the most, and we've talked about this before again, is that Belkin. I have a Belkin plug extender, right? These are really handy when you're in the airport or a hotel. Plug it in. It's got 3 ports along the side and 2 USB on top.
Okay.
And you can charge everything. So one outlet, and I can charge everything in the room. And so that was, that's kind of, when I think about the tech I took.
That was about it?
That was it.
Now, one thing I thought about when you first, I don't think you did this, but I had a question if you thought about it, and if you did, if it'd work. You're talking about taking a bunch of photos, and with your phone or with whatever. Did you think about maybe setting up a Google Plus event where you could have multiple people posting photos to that event? And I wonder, for the probably most of the people who are listening to this, that wouldn't be a hard thing to do. You've probably been in Google Plus quite a bit, but I wonder for your non-tech family, if you have some of that were at this event, if you could have hooked them up, and that would have been a cool thing to do, to have everybody posting into a Google Plus event.
Yeah, that would have been a great idea. I didn't even think about that. That would,
especially with the wedding going on.
Now we did kind of use Facebook that way, and I really feel for anybody who follows all of us, because
I blocked you.
Yeah, you might want to during the weekend. I was taking pictures and posting them. Sarah was taking pictures and posting them until her phone broke. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Phil was taking them. Alicia was taking them, his wife, and then Josh was taking them. Tim was taking them. Samantha was taking them. So all of us, all 7 of us, were taking pictures and posting. And so if you followed our family, man, you saw it every day. I was posting them live. This is the amazing thing, too. I've done Garden of the Gods for the last 10 years. And only in the last 2, maybe, have you gotten any kind of connectivity out there. And now it's as good as anywhere in the city.
And where's Garden of the Gods?
Garden of the Gods is in Colorado Springs. And it's a kind of a rock formation off the end of the city. It's up in the mountains, sort of. And, I took tons of pictures there. I mean, I took pictures 8 years ago when my kids were small. My parents have lived there for a while. And you came home and downloaded them and uploaded them up to the computer. I was taking pictures, HDR photos, and then just, boom, right onto Facebook in real time.
So you mentioned Facebook. I think that's, I don't want to get into a Google Plus to Facebook debate. So maybe you couldn't get, like my mom, I would not get to go over to Google Plus. But you could create a temporary or whatever group. Actually, you can create a group, invite all of them in, get y'all stuff in there, and just post in that group so everybody doesn't have to suffer through your feed.
That's true. That's true. Although Facebook does a pretty nice job if you post multiple pictures. It's one post.
That's true.
And then Facebook's gotten so bad about only showing partial feeds anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't have really anybody come to me and say, "Hey, could you guys slow it down?" I did have people say, "Man, I wish I was on vacation with you guys." We had a really good time. And so Facebook really became a big part of the way we would post, and then would share them with each other and, make comments and stuff. We had as much fun sharing,
Think about when we were younger and you would go on vacation. What you would hate is the guy who would come back with slides and he'd want to show you his slides. But, back in that day, your friend would go on vacation, you wouldn't hear anything from them. until they came back, and then whatever. Nowadays, and I have friends who are on vacation right now out in California, and when you were posting them too, it's fun to go through Facebook or wherever you're going through and see some of those photos. You're right. I don't have to sit there and watch all of them because you're not here making me watch your slides. I can watch them as I want to, but it's fun to share in pieces of your vacation. So when you're on vacation, especially if it's someplace interesting, and even if it's not, just seeing some photos of where your friends are is fun to be. You feel a little bit of a part of it.
Yeah. You kind of go along with it. Oh, I've been there, or I haven't been there, or
where is that? Tell me about that place. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I know it kind of makes you feel maybe like you're sharing a little bit, and in real time. It's like I was posting these pictures in the morning. We were out, I think Monday morning. We were at Garden of the Gods, and I took a couple pictures and immediately moved them to Facebook. And within an hour, I was getting comments back on those. And so that's nothing new. We as tech guys and gals, I think that's all pretty. Nobody's shocked that we did that kind of stuff. But it was. For me, it was my phone became the all-in-one device. I was using it kind of for everything. One of the things I learned, though, so Sarah, that Monday, she was out with us. She was getting off of a rock and in some way crushed her phone between herself and the rock and cracked the screen and broke the digitizer on that. Now, it's brand new Galaxy S4. Right? And when I say brand new, I mean within the last 6 months. I probably had mine about 6 months. We don't have the insurance on it. Our backup is a Galaxy S2 that we kept, right? Yeah. Now, she actually went to Sprint this morning. They took care of it. They switched her over, took her phone, switched it back. So she's on her emergency phone. But it did lead me to think, okay, Jim, what are you going to do? So I called around, and they want $100 just to replace the screen, not the digitizer, but the screen. By the way, you can buy these screens for like $10 on Amazon or eBay or whatever, right? Super easy to replace yourself. Okay, so one of the things, at least on the Galaxy S4, I haven't done any of the other phones, but that night Sarah was feeling kind of bummed. She broke her phone, and with the digitizer broken, she couldn't do anything. It turned on, but then it was
you can't touch it.
Yeah, it was everything. The whole screen got crunched into the upper third like this. And it was all, it was all lines and jammed together. There was no way she was going to get anything out of that. And we tried. I tried a couple things to kind of help her out with it. Couldn't make it work. So what I do, I went to YouTube. Broken, what do you do with the broken S4? And so I watched a couple videos of guys that takes his phone apart. Mike, I'm not a big fan of taking these kinds of things apart. I'm like, watch the video, and at the end of the video, I watched 2. I was like, you know what? I can take this thing apart. So last night, I just from memory took the back cover off, take the battery out, put your thumb underneath the power button here, and you just start moving it around, and it starts popping that frame loose as you go around, and you can use like a credit card or a little pick, like a guitar pick, pop that out, and the frame pops off. Super easy. There's some screws. Well, you got to take about 8 screws out first, and then pop the frame off, and then you can get to the. It's like plugging your monitor in, right? There's a little plug in there. It goes in, it's flat, right? But plugs in, you just pop that off. I took her phone apart, my phone apart. I put my screen on her phone so we could get in there and at least get access. She could answer some texts and do some other things that were on there that she couldn't see. And so we got it all squared away in preparation for her moving to a new phone. So I was thinking, man, the price these guys charge to work on these things, I'd charge half price. So
you took both of your phones apart then?
Took both apart, used my digitizer and screen on her phone. I just plugged it in and had to use my home button. None of these buttons down here worked on my screen. I had to go to hers underneath, and you kind of have to rig it. But in an emergency situation, I was kind of glad we both bought the same phones. You know, because now I don't know if you could do that with an iPhone or not. I don't know, but seriously, they're not as hard as I thought they were. When you replace the digitizer, there's a whole bunch of components on the motherboard. The motherboard only takes up this section of the phone right here on the back, which is crazy to me.
Super small.
Super small. And that includes this big old camera lens that's in there. And I say big, it's not very big, but it's still pretty big relative to the phone.
The battery takes up most of the space.
Oh, yeah. The battery's 50% of the weight and the size, on this thing. Imagine if we could get better battery technology, how thin and light they'd fly out of your hands.
You can make it a paperclip size.
Kind of. Well, they did that back in the late 90s. They got really small with their phones. Nobody liked them because who wants to talk like this on their phone?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. So switched those over, got her set up, pulled it all back apart, and to change the digitizer, that's probably a couple hours worth of work to carefully pull things apart, but very doable. And you think about it. What goes in must come out, right? I mean, they put it together. Somebody put it together. So
as long as they didn't glue it together.
Well, there is some. So when you get to the digitizer, there are some spots where you need to get a heater, right? You get a blow dryer on it, and you warm that glue up, and it'll pull apart. So
how do you glue it back?
There's kits that you get to when you pull the digitizer off, you pull the sticky stuff off with it. And then there's a kit you put on, and you put the digitizer back on top of it, and that kind of adheres. The glue is heat activated, so you heat it up and it loosens up, and then you heat it up again when you put it back together, and it loosens up enough to put it. So, end of the story is I don't think these things are as hard to work on as I struggled with PCs back in the day, but we got pretty good at working on PCs.
Oh yeah, PCs.
It's not that much different, just a little smaller.
So, no, the end of the story should be her phone's working now.
Oh, that would be nice.
It's not?
No, not yet. She's on the Galaxy S2.
Okay.
It is
bridge the gap between I fixed it and it doesn't work.
No, it's I haven't fixed it yet. So let's not get carried away. So I'm gonna fix it though.
It must have more than a digitizer in the screen.
It's no. It is. It's only the digitizer in the screen.
Okay.
But those things, because I took mine and it worked perfectly once I put my digitizer and screen on it. So I know that's the case. So for $160, you can buy a brand already assembled screen and digitizer that you just then have to take the motherboard or the board components off of the other digitizer and put those in. That's a little bit of work. And watching the video, I think something I can handle. I mean, if you're good at small screws and being careful and patient with things, I think most people could do it.
What you should do when you go to do that repair, which is going to take you several hours,
drink lots of beer.
Yeah, well, not lots. But set up a camera that's on time lapse.
Yeah, I should.
I don't know if you can do that with your webcam or not, but
there's lots of videos out there. This is what surprised me, as I've easily found two that show you great directions on what to do. And one of the guys had it nailed. I mean, he was saying exactly what every single component was. He's like, this is the thing that makes your phone vibrate. Here's the audio jack. This is this, and this is that. Here's your antenna, and this is the, pull your USB port off. So then one of the guys I watched was like, oh, I don't know what that is, but you just got to take it off. I was like, so there's, yeah.
Well,
so,
good. I look forward to hearing when you have it fixed.
Yeah.
It's not quite as scary once you get in there and start moving around.
I don't think so. And, so for $140 or $160, the cool thing is we could change her to some different colors in the process. She had white. I could get a red or brown they make
red
some
or brown
custom,
what?
This front plate that's on the Galaxy S4. There's this front plate.
Really?
It's stock black, but they make red and brown and purple and blue. And
while you're at it, you might as well.
Yeah. No, if you're gonna buy a new one, I mean, she had white. It was cool. It's it looks like I think they call it the Stormtrooper phone. It's white and black. But so we'll see. So that was kind of tragic. The good news was, as we backed up, she's like, "Oh, my pictures." And I'm like, well, we'll just pull them off the phone. We'll turn it on. And so I got on her phone, and I went to the picture folder, and I opened it up, and I said, what do you have on Google+? And because we back up, she backs her phone up to Google+, and they were the same. And even though the digitizer was broken, it had updated the pictures. Now, she did have a couple in memory or something that she lost. She told me she'd taken a few more, and they never made it to Google+, and she swears she had more. I don't know. But it did back up. All her pictures were backed up to Google+, and they're there. So, crappy end. I mean, that happened on Monday, and she felt pretty bad about it, losing her phone in that way. Now, this did give me, we are super dependent on our phones because I was like, well, how are we going to do this? Well, I'll just call you. And she was like, no, you won't. I'm like, oh, crap. You know, what am I going to do? And because she just didn't have any communication device, you know, and it's amazing how dependent we are for that now.
What we have done, and I don't have them right here beside me, when we go on a cruise, you know, your cell phone may work out in the water, but it's going to cost you. And we try not to, we put it on airplane mode or whatever, so that nothing's happening with that. If you buy the Wi-Fi package, you might be able to do something through Wi-Fi. But we bring walkie-talkies with us, you know, those 5-mile walkie-talkies. And
how much are those?
I think for a set of 4, we paid a little under $100. The higher quality, they're supposed to go 5 miles, line of sight 5 miles. Now on a ship, you know, it barely makes it from one end to the other with all that metal there. But we were getting, and we were on the Allure of the Seas, which is a large ship. It's one of the largest in the ocean right now. We're making from one end of the ship to the other.
That's not too bad.
And from when I say one end to the other, the kids or somebody might have been on one end, and we were in our room. So, you know, it was not just going from top deck to top deck. It was going that way. Yeah. So if you're within a smaller range like that, that is something to think about if you're not going to have cell service, or cell service is going to be expensive.
And are those pretty quiet when you have them? Because I know there's a squelch on it that, you know, and then you can...
We turned ours to vibrate because it gets a little aggravating to everybody else to hear that squelch. Yeah. No one, you know, no one else wants to hear all that. So we turned ours to vibrate.
Well, that's cool. That, I mean, I guess I haven't seen a walkie-talkie in a while. That's cool that that they got one that vibrate now.
Yeah, yeah. You can use.
So Lopta says you can use those in international waters, and I think U.S. and Canada.
The walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was a way you could not use them.
Yeah, maybe because maybe there's some communications laws or something associated with that. Well,
yeah, I'm not going to give you legal advice. Use at your own risk.
Yeah. Well, it's a great idea. We used to take those on youth group. You know, we're using FRS or GMRS. Do you know what he's talking about? Lopta's asking.
To be honest, I don't know, and I don't have them within reaching distance here.
Oh. What?
I wasn't prepared for that. Sorry. I know.
I just thought everything was within your reach.
I thought not everything.
How does that happen? That's awesome. Well, that was kind of from a tech standpoint, that was probably our biggest kind of issue through the trip, was when she broke her phone, you know, and she brought her phone out to take a picture. She's like, oh, the screen's cracked. And then she hit the power button, and then the digitizer went crazy. So she quickly turned it off, thinking that would make a difference, and it really didn't. The screen was broken, not the processor, and so it was it was a tough deal. We're gonna get her fixed, and it should be fine. So one of the things, Mike, I want to ask you before you go on vacation. You know, that's one of those things. What do you do with your tech before you go? We spend a lot of time on Home Server Show talking about backing up your stuff, so we won't spend a lot of time about backing it up, but. Let me ask you this. We'll assume you back up. And actually, I turned a server off, and my PC was backing up while we were talking to that, because I just turned it on a few minutes ago, and it's backing up to it now. But I assume you back up. But do you shut everything off when you go as far as PCs go, or do you leave them on?
I shut everything off except for probably the server. I have one server. I have 3 servers. So one of the servers that's running Crash Plan, that one I leave up if it's not caught up. If it's caught up, I'll, like right now, because of something I did, it's still got 20-something days to go before it's done. If that was caught up, I would turn everything off. I turn all my tech off, and sometimes I might even unplug the surge protector, just to be extra safe.
Just to disconnect it all the way.
I should say the battery backup surge protector. Every one of my PCs has a battery backup. I might even unplug those. I haven't done that every time, but sometimes if I remember it, so I do. But I do turn them all off.
Yeah. I turned a few off. I left my home server on. That's got things that run daily, and it's super efficient, so I didn't have any problem with that. I kind of shut just about everything else down, just for power reasons. You're not going to be here, right? It doesn't make sense to necessarily have it to kind of have it all running and up and going. You know, it's interesting. You're doing a big backup and it's taking days. That's a great time to just crank open the the bandwidth and just let it run, right? I mean, while you're away, because nobody's consuming the bandwidth in the house.
Unless you have PF Sense, which I just let it run all the time and don't even
True.
notice it.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what else I was going to say, but because I have Nest, I was going to say because I have a Nest, I don't worry about it necessarily as we're leaving. If I remember, I will. But because I can access it through the phone, I will turn the heat up or down depending on what time of the year it is. Let it get a little cooler, a little hotter in the house. Not too much. You don't want to let it go too crazy. But if I don't remember to do that before we leave, I do have where I can do it on the phone.
Yeah, that is kind of nice to have that kind of control.
Yep.
We had the Nest in the form of my son John. He stayed while we were here, and so he kind of kept the house warm, so to speak. Although we had some record-setting temperatures on Monday while we were gone. Thank goodness we were out. So he kind of kept watch for us, which was really nice.
And I know some people may leave their server up and running because they access their server from remotely. I don't do that. If you did, that would be a reason to leave it running. Another thing to think about is, where you and I may not have bandwidth caps that anybody's enforcing. I am using 2 terabytes so far this month of bandwidth. Yeah, that's not storage. That's bandwidth of this month.
Right.
Not everybody has that ability. So if you're going to be leaving the house, it may be a good time to think about taking some of your storage off-site if you can't be backing up remotely with CrashPlan like that.
Yeah, it's a good time to take a backup set off-site.
Exactly.
Right? You just take it to work, drop it, and leave it.
Because you think about the times that something may go wrong with your house, somebody breaking in, a fire, a flood, or something like that, some kind of plumbing issue, something that could damage your server and all your storage, is when you're not there.
No, right on. And you don't have any. I mean, the house just burns down, right? Yeah. I mean, and there's nobody there. I mean, hopefully your neighbors catch it, but that's the time it almost always goes bad, right?
Yeah.
When those kinds of things happen. Rennie had mentioned he leaves his server on to get his files if he needs them. I'd actually, in my case, if I needed them, I'd go to CrashPlan to get them. That'd be the easiest way. Now I leave the server running too, but if I did turn it off, or there'd been a power failure, where the batteries couldn't recover, or any of those kinds of situations, they're all available on CrashPlan for me. If I need onesies or twosies, I can grab that and pull it down and get that done. So not a bad way to go about it. Mike, one of the things you might have seen me doing, besides posting to Facebook all the time, and it wasn't necessarily me, it was my kids, but I was tweeting while I was gone.
I noticed that, yes.
And yeah, it was people who were like, hey, how are you? I thought you were on vacation, right? I'm like, I am on vacation. And you and I have both been looking at, and here's some tech that I kind of want to expose to folks, is we've been looking at 2 services. You one more than the other. I've been looking at both, but Zapier, Zapier. I think I've mentioned that here on Home Gadget Geeks before. We talk a lot about it on Ask the Podcast Coach Saturday mornings, 9:30 Central. If you want to come over and listen to me on Saturday mornings, Mike, you're always there. So
I'm always there. First one.
I appreciate that. It's good. Yeah, you are. You beat me every single time.
Every single week.
I come down early and I go out there. Oh, Mike Howard's already there. But Zapier, Zapier, that's actually a service I paid for. I pay for $15 a month. I like it. They're actually really, really good. And it's an automation service, so you can take. Say every time someone posts, so every time JPEG to RAW posts a blog post, I can have an RSS trigger, and it will create an automatic tweet for me, and it'll send it out to Twitter or to Buffer or anywhere. I could write it to a Google Doc. I could send it to Evernote. What do you have any other?
You can send it to OneNote. You can send things to OneNote.
Yeah,
which is crazy. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I'm thinking you're talking about Zapier. I'm talking about if this then that.
That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm personally not familiar with Zapier. I've been using if this then that.
Same thing.
And the things that you can have it do is beyond what just maybe the techie would do or the podcaster would do. Things where you can have it gather stuff, put it into OneNote or to Evernote, something like that. You can have it turn things on and off your phone, an iPhone or an Android phone. You can have it at certain times of the day, turn it on silent. Turn it back on sound, do that kind of stuff. When you get to work, turn it on silent. When you get home, turn it back on sound or whatever. You can have it put out a Facebook post or a tweet or some other things. I can't remember what else, maybe a Tumblr or something like that, on certain times of the year, or date driven or time driven, to say Merry Christmas or Happy Birthday or something like that. Maybe I should do that for my mom because I never remember to call her.
Or maybe have it send a text to you to remind you call your mom. It's her
Yeah,
birthday, right?
something like
And
that.
that's the thing, right? I mean, I've been experimenting. All the stuff that I do, I experiment with, right? I use my own personal account. We're using some of it at work at Gallup too, and so I kind of experiment with it. And when I first started, I was using the automation every time someone would post something in a Facebook group, I would tweet it. And I'm changing that now, or the RSS feed is a better example. I follow some people that I like what they write, and I want to automatically post. Well, if I get a bunch of them to post all at the same time, then all of a sudden I get 3 or 4 Twitter messages within a 20-minute time span. And so I've been using Buffer. That's another bufferapp.com. That's another app that's out there. So I actually feed those tweets into Buffer, and then Buffer separates them out I can set a schedule with Buffer and say, hey, I only want you to schedule between the hours of, and this is where I'm at right now, 7:55 and 9:55 p.m., 7:55 a.m., and every hour on the hour between those times, then tweet. And so you'll watch. I've got some other tweets going on too that are happening in real time, but I'm spreading out some other ones as well. And so if you've been following me on Twitter at @Collison on Twitter, you've probably noticed my traffic has picked up on that. And if you don't like it, just stop following me. I'm not going to stop. It's one of those things that I want to keep doing. But yeah, so auto tweeting, and like Mike, you said, there's some home automation. There's some phone integrations that you can do with it.
Some integration with Nest, I think there is.
Yeah, there is
something there. There's something with some of the lights. I think Philips has a light called crap. It's not called crap. I can't remember the name of the. I can't remember the name of the light bulb, but you can actually have it change the color of the light bulb based upon the weather outside or something like that. So there's a few things like that you can do. Some of them are more gimmicky than others, but some of them are very useful. I am right now using, I think, 21 different, they call them recipes for if this then that. I'm using 21 recipes.
Yeah. No, and I think I have 17. I'm trying to catch up to you with it, and I'm trying to be and if you've got some suggestions or if you got some complaints, let me know. Jim@theaverageguy.tv. If you follow me on Twitter, send me a tweet, whatever. I did turn on one, and I spammed. I said, anytime go to Twitter, and anytime someone says cybersecurity, I want you to tweet back to them, hey, thanks for following cybersecurity. We'd love to have you listen to our podcast on Cyber Frontiers. Well, there was a conversation that went back and forth that had the word cybersecurity in it, and so somebody just got blasted by me. So the next day,
I got you beat.
I know you had, yeah. I mean, you had your Facebook. Talk about that.
You can create a circle, and you got to be careful. You can create a circle. I had set up one to welcome new members to our Facebook group. The if this then that is broken with that, and whenever somebody joins, it welcomes them, and then proceeds to welcome the previous 100 people who joined, one at a time. If somebody new joins again during that time, it'll start over and do it again. And I also had set up anytime somebody posts on Facebook to tweet it. And also, the tweets then went to my Facebook page or something like that. So I set up a little circle where somebody would join the group, it would welcome them and start welcoming 100 people and tweeting all that stuff out and then posting it to our Facebook page. So I was trying to stop it and delete as fast as I could as it just continued to do it. So you got to don't do it and go to sleep.
Yeah. Check it before you go. Yeah.
Light bulb. There you go.
Tony says Hugh. Yeah. And Rennie makes a good point. He's like, Jim, you should set up a different account for strengths. Yeah, except I don't want to manage a whole. I already got the Average Guy TV Facebook account or Twitter account, and I've got my own. And this is a struggle for me because this is where my worlds collide. Right, I'm a podcaster for both work and at home, and those worlds collide in a lot of ways. And it's one of those kinds of things. It's like, the coaches know me out there on my Twitter account as much as you guys do. And so I'm tweeting both. I think right now I have one set up every time a Facebook update happens on either the StrengthsFinder account or on the Call to Coach one that I run, it tweets. I think I'm probably going to shut that off at some point. I haven't seen very much traction on that. And again, I'm testing some things. I appreciate you guys being patient with me as I test things out. We're just trying stuff to see what's effective. And if I thought, the other thing is I moved off some strength stuff onto the Average Guy TV account because I didn't want to spam you with all that every time somebody posts their top 5. I didn't want to spam them with that. And so maybe I just have to rethink about who does what, and maybe all the podcasting traffic for the averageguy.tv stuff needs to go through that Twitter account, switch over to that completely, and all the strength stuff needs to go through the Jay Collison account. So I really don't want a third Twitter account to grow and have to,
I will say,
and maybe I need to back it off.
You've had some good growth there. Excuse me. You've had some good growth there. When I checked recently, you were almost at 1,500 followers on Twitter.
It's
had
picking
surpassed
up.
Dave.
Got you, McCabe. Well, but Mike, the quality of that, some of this, I've called it the summer of Twitter because I've had all these interns, college and high school interns in, and one of our projects was to kind of research and figure out how to make Twitter work for us with the @StrengthsFinder. And so I've learned a lot about it from a tech perspective, but I don't know. There's people who are out there that are wildly successful as far as growing engaged groups out there, and that's what we're trying to do. And so there's a balance in there somewhere,
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. So anyways, if you've been following me on Twitter and you didn't like what I'm doing, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I will probably do some things differently. You know me, I'm always changing, but that has been this automation. So I would, in the evenings, I would use Buffer. I would load up a bunch of articles into Buffer, stuff that I found interesting that I thought you might like to see. Maybe, maybe not. Tell you what's been popular is I follow the NASA RSS feed now, and so every time NASA tweets something or every time they post something, I just tweet it. Those get bunches of hits, and anytime you put Star Wars in your feed, that always does well. So
I think anytime you put any kind of popular show on there, because I did, I tweeted several times about Halt and Catch Fire. And those all got retweeted and favorited and all that kind of stuff. Responses back to them, yeah. On those kind of things.
Well, the question you ask yourself is, what's the end goal with Twitter? What are we really trying to do with it, right? And for me, it's an advertising mechanism, right? It's a way to get the word out about some of the things that we're doing here on the network. Open to your criticism, your comments. I'm not going to agree with them all. There's some things I'm going to do that you're not going to like. I apologize for that. Don't follow me if you don't want to. It hurts my feelings a little bit. It really hurts Mike Howard's feelings when people leave his Facebook group.
I want to track you down.
But
creating a spreadsheet of everybody who's there now.
That's right. He knows.
I know when you leave.
You do not want to leave the JPEG to RAW Facebook group. But the point being at that point is there's some really cool, when you think about this automation, I'm using it for Facebook and Twitter and some of those kinds of things. But like you mentioned, that's home automation, things you could be taking care of when you're away, right? I mean, maybe you have an automated task, like one of these with the hue lights, right? Maybe you want to turn your lights on and off on a regular pattern so it makes it look like you're home, right? Maybe that's something you want to do. You could use automation to do that with one of these services, kind of, and make it happen while you're out. So,
well, before we get, can I bring us back to photos? I had a couple of things on photos.
Yeah, do that.
So I know you were a cell phone photo guy, and that's what a lot of people are going to do, and I'm going to do some cell phone photos too. But some people are going to take DSLR or a bigger camera along with them. That's going to the more standard camera, digital camera. I know Tim is going on vacation in August down to Disney, and he's taking with him an iPad. And the two things I'm going to mention here are both they only do an iPad. They won't run an Android, and I don't own an iPad, so I'm not going to use them. But for Tim, he's going to be taking a lot of photos using his SLR, his digital SLR. And he has an iPad, and he has the Photosmith app. It is photosmithapp.com, and it interacts with Lightroom. If you're a serious photographer, you would need to have Lightroom as part of your editing process, on your main computer. But when you're out in the field, you may not have Lightroom with you, and you may not have your laptop, do all that kind of stuff. So you have your tablet, you have the Photosmith app on that, and then he's using an iFi card, which is basically just a compact flash or whatever type of memory card he has that has Wi-Fi built into it, and he's using that, going to feed his iPad, use the Photosmith app so that in that he can go through, and one of the more time-consuming things when you take a lot of photos as a photographer is going through them and picking out which ones are the good ones, which ones you want to edit later on, and tagging them with this is Jim Collison. You really want to tag him if you can in Lightroom. He could be doing all that stuff at night when he gets back at the hotel room, going through them. And even if he doesn't get done, he's getting something done. So he's tagging all those. When he gets back home, that then syncs up with Lightroom that he has at home, and all that work he did in the field is already done. So Photosmith app is what I was just talking about there, and there's another one that's doesn't have quite as much features as that, but it's the Adobe Lightroom mobile app, also only for the iPad, and that doesn't allow you to do everything that the Photosmith app does. It is free though, the Lightroom mobile app, if you already have the Creative Cloud that comes along with it. So that's something to look at. There was one more thing, the Hyperdrive, which is a portable storage unit. Scott Green, our Facebook group, had talked about that for a while. He brings it along with him when he's shooting weddings. It has the ability to download his compact flash card right into it. It has a little LCD screen, and we can have the link in the show notes. Little LED screen so he can see them on there, and he can download his photos after he shoots, put them in there as additional storage. Yeah, there you go. As additional storage for him while he's in the field. Because one of the things, if you're taking photos, you don't want to lose some of these photos, and you may need to reuse that compact flash card. So it's a way to offload some of that.
And it has Wi-Fi built into it, so if you have one of those iFi cards, it'll sync with this device immediately, right?
Yeah, I think it also has. Yeah, it has a way to input right into it too, but you can't use the iFi.
They start at about $250. Looks like $250 for the doesn't see how much space. The 120 gig version is $299.
Right.
And then they go all the way up to $649 for the 1 terabyte. Wow, it's a lot for 1 terabyte. But they're pretty small, right? From that.
Yeah, and if you're someone who's in the field a lot, that is a good thing to have to back up your photos. If you can, I would try not to overwrite your compact flash or whatever memory card you're using. Try to bring enough cards that you don't have to overwrite them, just in case. That's a way to back them up, though.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. I mean, you could. I mean, like you're saying, if you're not on a phone, right? That works out really well if you're putting them on the card. And you can either move it automatically or pull it out, swap it in. That you could, as you talk about if you're especially at an amusement park and you're standing in line, which you do it a lot.
Yeah.
Take a bunch of pictures as you're standing in line. Pull that thing out and be editing right as you're standing in line. Gives you something to do. Kind of gives a new meaning to the word multitasking there at that point. So.
Or for in Tim's case, he's going to be using an iPad, so he can do that at breakfast in the morning, or I don't know if he's going to carry it around in his bag or not. But there's lots of downtime when you're at a vacation, and he can going through and culling the images, which is sorted in good and bad. You can do that pretty fast without having to use a lot of brain power.
Right.
Sometimes when you're at vacation and you have a lull in your time, you don't necessarily want to. You want to just relax. You can do that fairly easily without using a lot of brain power.
Yeah.
You're not deleting them, and you're only working with the JPEG in that situation.
Sitting by the pool, enjoying a beverage. That's not a bad way to pull the iPad out or the tablet or whatever, that little device, and just start going through kind of separating the pictures. Yeah, it's a good idea.
So look at that. We had the guy one of the guys who runs Photosmith on the show a few weeks back, and talked about that. So I think the app is like $19.95. It's not expensive at all.
JPEG to RAW, isn't that the #1 photo podcast now in the nation, maybe in the world?
Asterisk mark. Yep,
yeah.
It is.
Asterisk mark. I like that. That's live on Tuesday nights at 7:30 Central,
with
8:30 Eastern, and a chat room. Yeah,
and video.
Yeah. And has a host named Mike Howard.
and is broadcast on JPEG to RAW.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good good title. Yeah, so some cool things to do, because really, I mean, when you're on vacation, the #1 thing you're worried about is pictures, right? I mean, that's what you take. We went alpine sledding at Winter Park in Colorado on Tuesday. We went there, and I left the phone in the hotel room. It's like no, not taking. And they have for $50 you get like a day pass to everything, and they have a lot of summer events there. This alpine slide, they got bounce house, and these big bungee jumping things, and one of them is you can take one of the big lifts all the way to the top, and that was amazing. I had a beer at the top of the at the top of the world, so to speak, and it was just fantastic. Now, I only regret I didn't have my phone with me at that point, but it was
I
not
understand
about
not
to
taking your
bust
phone,
that
but
thing.
you should have taken this.
Yeah, let's talk about the GoPro because my brother had one there, and he was taking pictures of the kids swimming, and he would go underneath, go underwater with them. And he made a whole video with music and everything that he put together of these kids and their GoPro. He puts it on the wand that you hold out so you can do yourself.
This
You
thing?
know, yeah, yeah, that thing. Hold on, let me flip that over to you. I mean, you can spend some serious cash on this GoPro stuff.
Yeah, the GoPro itself, the one I got the black, the Hero 3 Plus Black edition, which is the most expensive one, and it is, I think it's right at $400 for the camera without a memory card. It comes with what you're seeing here. It comes with the camera, the case, and a few other accessories like a remote. I have actually never used a remote. A lot of the accessories like this one here are usually under $20 a piece. They're not that expensive. And I got a few. I got the headband. I got the suction cup. I got this thing. I got the little grip thing. The couple things I'll say about it is the battery is not going to last long at all. The battery in this thing, because especially if you're doing, like I usually shoot in 1080p, 60 frames a second, and the battery's just not going to last that long. And I often, because there is no LCD screen on the standard one, you can see the back. You have no idea what you're pointing this thing at. I mean, you got a general idea, but you could be framing it where you're cutting everybody's heads off. I actually turn the Wi-Fi on, and then there's a free app you get with it, and you can see live video there, and you can use that to frame it, and that just chews up the battery even faster. There is a extended battery you can get, and then you got to get a little bit different back on the case here to make sure it's still sealed. But this is a water sealed case. You can take it, and it's pretty tough too. It's a great thing to take on vacation. Just charge it on a regular basis, and get yourself a big, fast memory card.
Biggest, fastest. I mean, what size do you recommend?
Let's see what size I got. I have to open it up and take a look. And the memory card is just crazy small in this thing too.
Oh yeah. Well, it's really. I mean, there's so many things you can do with that, because you can set those to take pictures every so often, right?
Yeah,
with what you're doing.
You're not gonna be able to see this because it's so
Yeah.
tiny.
Wow.
But it's a 64 gig. You
Good
can't see that,
heavens.
can you?
Yeah. No, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, 64 gig Extreme Plus from SanDisk is what I'm using.
How much right now?
Actually, I think it was under $50.
Okay, that's cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
they're not that expensive. So that's why I'm saying get a big, fast one.
and my like I said, my brother had one, and he's using the heck out of that thing, making movies of the kids, and he put it in his truck, just mounted it right on the front where it was showing it was him and his daughter, and they were singing some crazy song, and he just recorded it, and she was making funny faces, and it was cute. It was really cool.
Yeah, I went on a trip where we were out at a camp out in the middle of the woods, and to get there, you had to go through some narrow, roads with mud in them, and then there was a ditch I had to go through. I used the suction cup. I had the suction cup thing. Suction cupped it to the front of my hood, and drove through the woods using the suction cup. It stayed on there really good, and took that. Water splashing everywhere. Some water did hit the front lens, and that made some spots on there as I was driving through. But you take that, and then the software that you get that you can download is from the people who make this, from the GoPro people. The software will crash on a regular basis, so make sure you save very often. But it's fairly easy to go through there and speed up and slow down the clips, and then add music to it and all that kind of stuff. So I added the AC/DC Back in Black song in there, and made it to be the same length as the song.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, I think we're only going to see more of these devices come out. They're going to get smaller and more convenient, and then less. The GoPro has been wildly popular. Tim, my number 4 son, he bought an off-brand of it, and of course he then put it on his helmet and did some stuff. And they're super creative with all the things that they do. So it was pretty cool. But definitely, I think a go-to device now for vacation. I mean, I think it would have been cool to put that on my head and then carry it up the incline, right, which is a seriously steep climb. It's doable. It's just really hard. And have that on and then do the time lapse, shots of it to kind of bring that all in. So that would be very cool to do.
I've done a time lapse in a baseball dugout, where when I had it set up, had my app on the phone, had the thing on the phone, and as they're coming back into the dugout, click, and I'd have it take a photo every 2 seconds. I can't remember what it was, something like that. And then when they were done, they were leaving, I would turn it off because I'm trying to preserve the battery. And I did that through the whole game. And then I took all those. It was a lot of photos, but made basically a time lapse video out of all those photos. So yeah, it's you get better with it the more you use it, and there's a lot of different settings. You can have some really high speed on there. You can do something, I think 240 frames a second, 240 frames a second, or maybe even higher than that as you reduce the resolution. I will be taking it on any vacation we go on in the future, and I probably, when I go on a vacation, I'll either buy the extended battery and or additional batteries just to make sure I have enough batteries for it.
Yeah, isn't that like the bottleneck at this point is batteries?
Yes, the battery that comes with it is nowhere near enough for me to fill the memory card with that thing, and you probably can't even get 2 hours worth of shooting with it at full charge.
Yeah, well, as we were climbing the incline, and a lot of spots in Colorado don't have cell service, and so my phone was going between 4G, 3G, and nothing, back and forth searching. I should have just put it in airplane mode, to be honest with you. But half a day gone, right? I mean, all that labor of searching. Now, I was taking a lot of pictures, too, so the screen was on quite a bit as I was up there. Now, what was weird is I was going in and out of service. Twitter and Facebook were updating, so I'd get to a spot, and then, bam, you'd hear my phone go off, and it was buzzing and, and making noise. And my daughter had climbed halfway up with us, and because people are like, why did you even have your phone on, right? Well, my daughter had climbed halfway up the incline with us and then said, I think I'm going to go back. And we didn't. So I sent her back down the hill. She's 15. And so I'm like, well, just text me from time to time. I want to make sure everything's, going okay. I know there wasn't a lot I could do. One of the things we did find, totally tech-related, is that we were walking down. This gal came blowing by me. She was running down the hill coming down. It's just a great one to run down. It's a 3-mile loop, and if you run down it, you can do it just incredibly fast as a runner. I ran that a couple years ago, had a blast. This girl comes blowing by me. So a few minutes later, I'm walking down the trail, and there on the middle of the trail, I see an iPhone, and then I see her keys. And I'm like, somebody had a yard sale. And she had been keeping them. She had a water bottle, and she'd kept them in the pocket there's a pocket in the water bottle to keep them. And that had gotten unzipped, or she'd unzipped it for something, and out came the phone flying. She didn't notice it. And so I picked it up in a key, and I carried it to the bottom of the hill. And she said, so I told the kids, I said, I bet it's her, and I bet we'll catch her right at the bottom of the hill. So sure enough, we got down to the bottom, and I kept waiting for someone who had this look of fear in their face, right? Like, oh my God, I got to go all the way back up. Where did I lose that? Am I gonna do this 3-mile hike to not find it because someone stole it, right? Or someone was gonna keep it or whatever? Because how easy would that have been to put it in my pocket and be like, well, okay, you're out of luck, So, so I caught her. Sure enough, I caught her at the bottom of the hill, and I saw this look of panic on her face. I said, hey, did you lose something up here? She's like, I lost my phone. And I'm like, what, this phone? She was so happy. She's like, oh, thank goodness somebody was honest. And it looks like Kevin has been listening to us while he's waiting to board. Kevin, have a safe flight as you go. Maybe you can catch us on Wi-Fi when you're on the, if you do catch us on the plane, let us know. Give us a holler on the Wi-Fi. He's really good at that. He
is really good at that.
And he seems like he's always traveling on Thursday nights, when he's doing that. So
hopefully he's traveling home.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, good for him to get home. And so she was very appreciative that we returned her phone. I think the more important thing was that I found her key.
Yeah.
To her car, because what do you do, right?
Yeah, you're just stuck.
You're kind of screwed. So
you call for help.
Yeah. Well, with what? You lost her phone. Yeah.
I set him up. You nail him down.
I didn't do a very good job of nailing that one down. So.
One last thing on the GoPro. Rennie said that's not very convenient to be looking at your phone and trying to line things up. You can get an LCD screen for the back of one of these if you wanted to.
Yeah,
it's extra cost.
That is kind of cool if you've got it in a spot. A lot of people will put those in spots where they're not accessible. They'll put them up on the top of a ladder or something.
Yeah.
and then you can kind of run it from your phone. I think that's the convenient,
Yeah,
part of it.
especially if you set it up somewhere, it's nice to be able to have that if you can.
Yeah, yeah. No, what, Mike? One of the other nice things, one of the other tech things when we talk about like GoPros and stuff, and we talked about this. Oh, I've had this phone since, or I've had this watch since May, but I took. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go back here. One of the things that I did take with me. Now it's like in an endless cycle, but I took my Garmin. A 220 with me.
Yeah.
Now this is primarily a running watch, but you can go underwater with it, and it does have it's water resistant, and it does measure altitude as well as elevation as you're changing, so distance and elevation. And it was really cool, like when I did the incline, or when we did the backwoods, or when we did Garden of the Gods. I just turned it on and just I wasn't running. I just had it running the whole time I was on the trail. And when I got off the trail, I had a complete trail map of what we had walked that day, which was really cool. I didn't care about the time, I wasn't worried about that. And so it was, so when I got done, in fact, if you follow me on Twitter, I might have posted it one time to my Facebook account, but it was you've got a map, and you can share it and say exactly. One of our friends was like, "Oh, where were you hiking? I love those pictures," and so we're like, here you go. Here's the trail map, right? This is exactly where you need to go if you want to take this trail. So that was kind of cool. We got, in fact, at one point we were on the mountain. I didn't have my phone with me, and Sarah goes, "I wonder how high this is." We were on the top of the mountain, and so I started it, let it run for a minute, stopped it, saved it. When I got back, because I didn't have my phone with me, when I got back, I synced it with my phone, and it told me the elevation. We were at like 10,029, 2,000 or 10,229 feet, something like that. And so that was really cool that I could be able to to track all that. And when I go into the Garmin software, when I'm done, you can then say it was a hiking. So you can say running or swimming or hiking or whatever.
Right.
Garmin's gotten really good at their software and making all that stuff work. And so Rennie found it. I think I did a Facebook post with it. If you're interested in more on that, let me know. Send me a DM on Twitter, or catch me in our Facebook group or something like that. But it was something traditionally you wouldn't use a running watch for, but it became like a hiking device. It was pretty cool.
Well, if you take photos with your phone, it's going to GPS tag them. But talking about Tim and somebody like me who's going to bring in digital SLR along with us, a lot of those, the majority of those, do not GPS tag the photos. So you can get. I have an app called GPS Logger, and just make sure that your phone and your camera are synced at the same time, and then I will just turn that GPS Logger on. And then later when I'm in Lightroom, I can load the file it creates. I actually have GPS Logger right in a file to Dropbox. I can take that file and then bring it into Lightroom, sync those two up, and now I have a map of where I've taken all those photos from a digital SLR.
Yeah, and you can sync the two together.
You can sync the two together. Something that would already come with a cell phone, taken photo, and a lot of point and shoots that have that now, but your digital SLR may not. But that's a way to get around it.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to get it to get that set. I know with the cell phone, they're all tracked. And actually, when I got home with the pictures, Google had already built an album for me. That was like, your trip to Colorado Springs. And so at one point, Sarah, we'd gone for a swim, and I was sitting in a chair. If you follow me on Facebook, you might have seen this for a few minutes. I'm in shorts, I'm not underneath this T-shirt. It's a little white. And so I was getting a little sun, and I'm embarrassingly white probably. And so she snaps this picture. I was just dead asleep. And so when I woke up, she's like, "Well, I took a little picture of you, posted on Facebook." I go, "You'll take that down right now, you will." So she did. Did you see it at all, Mike?
No, you're going to show us now, right?
No, I'm not going to show you now. So I made her delete it off Facebook. But then I was going through that album that Google had created for me. It was in there. Because, of course, she took the picture. It automatically, both my pictures.
Is that a public album that I can pull up right now?
It is not. I don't know. Maybe you have access to because I gave you access to my my photos at one point. I don't know. But to say the least, when I take a picture with my phone, it uploads both to SkyDrive and to Google Plus, so it's probably in both places, and it's a little embarrassing. It's not bad. I was I was sleeping, and I usually suck my gut in most of the time, but when you're sleeping, it just kind of. Anyways, you get the picture. It wasn't the greatest. Wasn't the greatest picture of me of all time, and so no, it was good, Mike. I think this might have been the first vacation that I took in a while where the technology got out of the way. I've spent the last 10 years because I'm an out front technology guy, right? I'm always trying to use the latest gadgets, doing the crazy stuff. I mean, think about all the podcasting we've tried to do from weird places, and I was the guy that had GPS that I bought for my laptop before they really. I mean, this was 5, 6, 7 years ago, before phones had all that stuff in it. I bought a GPS device that that USB'd into my laptop, and we set the laptop on the dash, and that was like our in-car navigation system, this big old laptop, right? And you could only go so long because the laptop battery would die, and we didn't have the right gear to plug that into an inverter in the car or whatever. So I was that guy, and we'd go on these vacations, and Sarah would always get frustrated with me because the technology was always getting in the way of the vacation. I was always more worried about setting up the technology. I think this is the first vacation I've taken in a long time that the technology just worked. And it it did what it was supposed to do, right? It got out of the way. It helped me capture really good moments. It got me lost. I mean, it got me found when I was lost. Those kinds of things. And I even use Waze, which is a crowdsourcing map application. And Waze is really cool. When we were coming into Denver, it was like, go boop, boop, police officer in 1 mile. And sure enough, at a mile, there was a cop parked over there kind of monitoring traffic. I'm like, holy cow. Because it's crowdsourced.
Speeding tickets.
Huh?
We know about Jim and speeding tickets.
Well, or my son's in speeding tickets. So so it was really, really cool that because it's crowdsourced, you get this really accurate information on both speed and where that kind of stuff is. So, but it just worked for most of it. I mean, I remember trips to Kansas City when the maps would freeze up on the original Galaxy Epic, I think, or if that what it was called, a little slider, and nothing worked right, and you're like, it was jankety, and you were kind of in and out. This time, it just kind of worked. So it was a good vacation. Okay, one quick story that's not necessarily tech related, and then we'll jump into the post show here. So we're coming back. This is yesterday, I guess. Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, coming back Tuesday, and no, Wednesday, and it's just hot. I mean, coming out of Denver, and it's like 90 already. And heading into, if you know the route, it goes Denver, Fort Morgan, Ogallala as you get into Nebraska. And we get to Fort Morgan. It's already getting really warm, and my air conditioner's not blowing very much. Very, very cool, right? Yeah, that's not something you want to lose in the summer, right? And we're kind of cracking the windows. My daughter's in the back. She's all red-faced and hot. She's sitting in the sun to begin with, and the air conditioner's not keeping up. And I'm like, well, so we pull in at Fort Morgan, and I'm really angry at this point. I'm kind of just irritated that this is happening, and we'd had kind of a confrontation in the morning anyways, and so I get out, I'm really mad, and I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. Someone's going to have to sacrifice their day to sit with me. We had 2 cars. And so my daughter said, I'll just move over. And so we drove from Fort Morgan there to Ogallala, windows down, 75, wind blowing and getting some air out. So when I got to Ogallala, I got to a auto parts store, and they had one of these, one of the newer cars where you can recharge the air conditioning stuff, right? And I've never done that. I don't like doing that.
I've never done it either.
Yeah, I don't like doing it at all. So I bought the kit, and the guy's like, okay, here's how you do it. You screw this on, test it, leave the engine on. So I read the instructions, and so I do it, and I recharge it. And I get done, I empty the can, and it's right at the right pressure and everything, and I'm thinking, oh, cool, I got this fixed. And we get in the car, nothing. In fact, it's hotter than it was. It's blowing hotter air, and I'm like, oh, crap. So I get even madder. So we go back, pick up the kids. I said, hey.
Compressors out, maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what it sounded like. My compressor was really struggling. I mean, it was like, and then it would cut off for a second. It would come on for a minute, and then it would go off. I thought, crap, I got a compressor out. I'm like, well, at least I got enough, coolant in there. So I go pick up the kids. I'm like, all right, who's going to sacrifice themselves this time? Samantha's already done it. So Tim, her brother, is like, I'll do it. So he gets in the back with me. Sarah's with me. Again, windows down. It's blowing. Her hair is blowing all over the place. It's a miserable, it's probably 2 hours, hour and a half to Holdridge. We pull over, and I check it a couple times, thinking maybe magically it'll come back on.
They do self-repair.
Well, that's what I thought. You never know. It could be like Transformers. Yeah. Right. So we get into say that again.
Did you kick it?
I should have kicked it. That'd have been a good idea. I should.
Well, there. Okay. Problem number one.
Out of it. Yeah. Problem number one. Kick it.
Go ahead.
Well, when we were coming on the interstate, to make matters worse, when we were getting on the interstate in Ogallala, I speed up and I hear this groaning sound, and then this big white cloud of poof right out from the car.
All that coolant.
And I'm thinking, oh, there's $50 in coolant that just got blown out the back of my car. Right? I'm like, unfreaking believable. And Phil, who was behind me, my oldest son, I was like, did you see that? And he's like, see what? I didn't see anything. I thought you hit a dust. Right. So anyways, as we're going between, I'm getting madder and madder because I'm like, I just made a $400 problem now into an $800 problem because I blew a line somewhere.
Yep.
I overcharged and blew a line. And so as we're getting to Holdridge, I am just angry and I'm hot and sweaty. It's just awful. And Nebraska in the summer, it's not more. It's not nice here. So we get to Holdridge. We switch cars. Phil comes in my car, and I get I get a Coke. I go over to Burger King and grab the largest Coke I can get my hands on. And we get back in the car. We get back on the interstate, and Phil is like, he's messing around with the buttons. And he goes, hey, what's this? And he hits this button, and like immediately ice cold air comes flowing out of the thing. Now, it's everything I had done, but for whatever reason, it just took some time for that system to come back online. Or
you did turn the air conditioner on, not just the fan, right?
I turned everything on and off several times, but he's our mechanic. He works in a shop, and he was just monkeying around with the button.
What's this button?
I mean, it just comes on. And Mike, it's not cold air. It's ice cold air, right?
It feels extra good when you're hot.
Oh my gosh. You could never imagine how you could improve somebody's day just by having cold air. Right?
No, I can't imagine that. I went several years without an air condition. And I don't know what it's like in Nebraska, but it's not exactly cool here in Atlanta.
No, it's not. It gets as hot, but not as often as it gets hot there. But
so what was the white cloud?
Nobody knows. I do not know. I don't know if I overpressurized it and it's just got a pressure sensitive valve that just released what it didn't need. It can't be that smart, right? I was thinking, no, that can't be. This isn't that good of a car, where it was like, in an air compressor, when you get too much, it's got a safety valve on it that lets out the extra air. I cannot explain it, Mike. It should not have worked. I should be having an $800 repair right now. Instead, I have the coldest air. I mean, it's colder than when that thing was new. I went out this morning. I tried it again because I was thinking, okay, it was a one-trick wonder, once we stopped the car. Nope, was working this morning. So it was one of those things, I was so mad because I'm like, not only did I pay $50 for this stuff, but I also broke something more. You hate, we'd already have a broken phone, which we're going to have to pay $160 to fix. And I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a big, and we spent a bunch of money on this vacation, those hotel rooms weren't cheap. That hotel room in Winter Park was not cheap that we stayed at. And so it was just kind of nice. It ended because I was really angry on the way back. I'm like, this is the worst day ever.
Yeah, and hot ride back.
And it's a long drive, and it's a long, boring drive. And Nebraska is not a pretty state to drive through.
Yeah.
And it's flat, and it's green, and it's just corn for miles and miles, or cows. And so it was, the tech in that was pretty interesting because they just gave you this can of coolant and it comes with the thing, and the guy at Napa's like, okay, now once you have this device, it's got a hose with a gauge in it, and then it quick connect to your low connection on the air compressor for the air conditioning. And then he's like, yeah, from here on out, you only have to buy the bottle. And I'm like, well, if it's $50, the bottle's got to be 40.
48 of
this
that.
is like a $10 Gizmo, right? It's not even Wi-Fi enabled. I expected that thing to sync with my phone so I could. No, not really. But so it was pretty interesting. When it started working, I was just so happy. Other Jim asked, "What was your elevation when you started working, and did you have the Garmin on?" No, I did. No, I did have the. No, I didn't have the Garmin on. When it started working, I was in Holdridge, which was probably, I don't know, 1,000 feet, and Nebraska, Omaha is probably at 800, 700 feet. So
it shouldn't have been
much.
the altitude that did it.
I don't think so. It was. I think Phil told me later. He goes, when we repair AC in the shop, those guys let it run for half an hour to 45 minutes before they deem it. I think the system's got to charge up, and so it's just one of those things where, and I could still have a faulty compressor. I could have had something lodged in the line, and when I overpressurized it, it cleared it out, right? Or who knows? You know what? I'm not going to ask questions until it goes bad again.
Yeah.
And if maybe next summer, if it works all winter and we get into next spring, maybe I'll take it in and have them take a peek.
I guess even if it eventually breaks, you at least got some more time out of it. I mean, it does sound like what you did not shorten its life. You may have extended it a little bit, and that's fine too. You just put off the cost of, put it off the cost of having to have it repaired, and maybe it's whatever. Like you said, it was just a temporary thing, and it's back.
Well, it's interesting, and it would be interesting if the elevation had anything to do with it. I guess I'll have to go back next weekend and check it out to see if I can. No, I'm not.
You can take the drive back and see if you can get it to cut off.
That's right. Get it to stop working. Tony also said I think he was referring to Nebraska. It wasn't as bad as he expected when he drove through it. I make that drive at least once a year between Denver and Omaha. And it's not as bad, but it's just I get so tired of it because it's the same thing all the time.
Going back to the vacation thing, the thing is when you go to a place that you're not at a lot, like I went and visited our cousins when I was young in Arizona, and I thought the desert, and we went to the Painted Forest and a Petrified Forest and Carlsbad Caverns and all that stuff that was out there, and just the desert with the cactuses. I thought this stuff is just gorgeous. Look at this. I love it out here. It's hot. I don't like that, but I like the scenery. And they could not understand how I would like that. What are you talking about? It's sand.
I know.
But it was different for me. And then when they came and visited us in Louisiana, and they saw some of the cypress trees and some of the swamp, they thought, "Wow, look how do you not love it here? It's gorgeous." What are you talking about? Swamp.
Yeah, it's funny what you're not used to. Yeah, what you're not used to, you don't appreciate.
So I would imagine that driving through Nebraska a lot, you get bored with it. But driving through it, once, like Tony did, and I'm sure if I drove through it once, at least for a while, those cornfields would be, look how neat this is, like corn forever.
Yeah. Well, in the 10 hours that I drove on Thursday, I listened to about 6 podcasts, and I kind of cleared my new podcast queue. I don't normally get that much time in a week to listen to all these podcasts, and so I kind of cleared that queue. And I got about 3 podcasts in on the way back, and I was out. And I'm like, oh, well, certainly there's a This Week in Google or This Weekend or Windows Weekly. No, Jim, it's only Wednesday. They're actually recording those today. Mm-hmm. And so I had to kind of go back and recycle a few things. And here's what was interesting about podcasting, and then we'll wrap it here with this, that I was listening to a Radio Lab. I don't know if you ever heard Radio Lab from NPR. But they have some it's young guys and gals doing this. They're kind of their view on tech. Very, very good if you haven't listened to it. It's NPR, so it's got a little different twist to it, which is, I find, at first I didn't like as much, but I'm getting used to it. Just their style, the way they produce it. But we got halfway through one of the shows when we had to change cars. And Tim, my son, was like, "Oh, I wanted to hear the end of that podcast." And he's like, "I'm like, well, hey, it's Radio Lab. You can download it when you get home." He's like, "I think I'm going to do that." And it's kind of fun. They're podcast listeners as well, but it's kind of fun to watch that generation, start kind of getting into podcasting and from a consumption standpoint.
You kind of, anything you start watching like that, you kind of get invested. Either you shut it off, or you start getting invested into the characters. That same thing with TV. I'm watching Falling Skies, and it's just not really that good of a show. but I'm kind of invested in some of the characters and I want to watch it the next week. And I keep thinking when I watch it, why am I watching this? But there's with podcasters, there's some that I watch or listen to that I've got invested somewhat in the podcaster, and I I want to hear what they're up to, hear what they're doing each week.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you come out. I mean, we do Ask the Podcast Coach on Saturday mornings, and you could do that show. I mean, you and I share everything, and yet you come and listen to it, and it fits in your schedule, like you're
Absolutely.
editing and doing some other stuff, and it fits in your schedule. So that has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed being on that on Ask the Podcast Coach. That's a good fit for me, and I'm a good balance to Dave Jackson over there. So if you haven't picked that up yet, Mike listens out there every Saturday morning. I think it's more fun to be live, and it's Saturday morning,
Absolutely,
so everybody's kind of chilled. So if you're in the Central Eastern time zone and it's convenient for a little early on the West Coast, not too bad if you're in the UK. This is where we kill our Australian listeners because there's no way, that's the middle of the night for those guys. But we're on at 9:30 Central, 10:30. This is a.m. Eastern time on Saturday mornings, and it's a good time. You always catch Mike out there in the chat room. I'm back in the seat for this week, and we just talk podcasting, general tech. So if you like some of that kind of stuff,
The time, if it was maybe 30 minutes earlier, it would be even more perfect. But 10:30 is really for Eastern. I'm Eastern. 10:30 Eastern is really good for me. I am usually here on a Saturday morning, doing some editing on my own show and something like that, and listening to you and to Dave Jackson in the mornings on Saturday is really good for me. It fits in real good, and it's become part of my Saturday morning now. Heck, even when I was in the month of June, the summers are my busy time at work, extra busy time. So in the month of June, I'm at work every Saturday, and I would bring the laptop and the earphones and plug them in. I'd be there, and because I'm going in early, I'd really beat Jim because I'm in a chat room then around 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm usually not rolling out of bed. That's my during the off season. That's from work. I do internship programs on Saturdays during the fall and the spring, and so I'll get those started and then go do the podcast. So that works out really works out really well. So join us on Saturday mornings if you want to. If you haven't been out to the site yet, theaverageguy.tv has a brand new look, and I encourage you to go out and take a peek at it. I've said that for a couple times. We probably will stop saying that after this time. Brand new look out there, and we've got a monthly newsletter coming. My goal is to have one here by the end of the month for you. If you would go out there, if you want to sign up to get the newsletter, it will start small at first and not a lot of spam. One time a month, just kind of update you on all the things that are going on with theaverageguy.tv, and a great way to kind of stay connected. It also tell me how many people are actually listening. We've had 10, Mike. Actually, with very little advertising,
Nice.
I've had 10 folks sign up for the newsletter. If you want to sign up for it too, there is a link for it. It just says subscribe for cool stuff out at theaverageguy.tv. Love to have you do that. If you could take a second to get that done, that would be great. I mentioned the Home Service Show meetup, September 20th. Love to meet you. Mike, as I've been looking at the dates, I know you're not going to be able to make it, but a lot of the same guys are coming back that we had last year. Craig and Sanford and some of those guys are coming back. So it'd be good to see those guys again. I get to see everybody who signs up, and so go out there and get signed up. Speaking of Home Service Show, I'll have to ask Jim, is the Home Service Show now Home Storage Geeks? No, Dave has not cut that over yet. He was headed that direction, and then he stopped. So I don't know where he's going with it, but for now it is the Home Server Show, and we do that about every other week now. It's kind of what, if you're a Home Server Show enthusiast, that's about as much as Dave and I can get done, is about every other week. All right, that'll be it for Home Gadget Geeks, and I like that name. I've kind of embraced that fully. It's been a nice changeover, and we'll wrap up show 176, and we'll be back here in the next couple weeks. The schedule's fairly open, but I'm hoping to have MediaFire come on and talk about some of their new offerings. I've also been working on Social Bro. We talked about them, I think. Maybe that was on Ask the Podcast Coach that we talked more about that, but Social Bro is a social media, Twitter, Facebook kind of thing. And I've got them coming on if you want to talk about how to manage all those accounts. And then I'm also shooting for Crash Plan as well. Get them back on. But by the time it'll be time to have Amber back on and talk about LastPass. So that's always it's starting to start cycling the guys through Dave Washington and that group of folks. And maybe, Mike, later in the fall, it's time to get JPEG to RAW back on here and catch up on some photography stuff as we get into the fall. So, Mike, thanks for taking an hour and 20 minutes out of your time. 25, I guess you've gone a little bit long, but I appreciate you coming out tonight and staying around. Thanks.
Always happy to be here. And the site, I would say, it looks great, Jim. I love the new look of the site.
Thanks. Yeah,
Yes.
it's working out well. Appreciate it. We'll be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at the Average Guy TV Live. And good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.